So, hi, and welcome to our show, Beyond 5D. We are intuitive guides and mentors, and we're here to bring through higher truth and higher reality that we access through our personal discerning channels of intuition. And so we're here today to step into that energy on this topic of fake woo, which we were guided to do. It was a relevant, very important, relevant topic. So we were guided to do this for our second episode. There is a lot of woo out there. There's a lot of fake woo, and part of the discernment process of stepping into the 5D self, into the sovereign self that knows the truth of themselves and can discern truth around them. This is part of the journey, isn't it, Michael? What would you say about that?
It absolutely is, because in order for you to follow the right path for your soul, you need to know what you should, with discernment, you need to know what you should be following and what you shouldn't. You need to be able to tell the difference between the two, because when you look at energy, which you mentioned in the first episode, when you combine everything with energy, then you can see what kind of energy they're giving off. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've seen a channeler who will remain nameless, who actually starts channeling these beings, for example. And they say that angelic beings, and that they're like 89, 105-year-old. It's just like no angelic being's going to tell you that age is 105. And they're dark grey. They've got big long armpits, and they've got tentacles and everything, and channeling these beings in, and they're trying to tell us what's the best for humanity. But I can obviously they're not angelic beings at all. I mean, they're obviously some kind of other being that's coming through if they're channeling in that way, but they certainly aren't angelic, because angelic beings are ageless. So there's no way that they'll be recording channelings coming in of beings that are 105-year-old, sometimes 200-year-old or whatever, and they've gone on to these different dimensions and different lives in different journeys around the world. Around the world in 200 years. It's around the multiverse in 200,000 years. These things. I mean, we just have to use our senses in a different way, so not logical way, but in a way which allows us to tap into our energy and be able to discern exactly what the truth is, and what is just woo, because there's so much of it out there. And what I would say as well, though, something important is just to laugh at it. Let them have that little bit of fun and just have that and just laugh at what they're doing, just have their little play, and laugh at it. But make sure that you're not absorbing all of this energy in that's coming from some of these fake woo channelers, because some of them are great, don't get me wrong, but you can tell the difference. Anything that makes you feel good usually is something which is true and something which is great to be able to help you with and help humanity. But with these ones that are coming through and they're making you feel bad, and they're taking you onto this 4D path, of darkness, I just wouldn't even listen to them, because they're not going to help you in any way. And what they could do is they could end up trapping you into a lower dimension, which is obviously what you don't want, and that's what this is all about. It's all about discerning the truth, from fiction, from fake. So what's your thoughts on that, Katie?
Well, so my experience with fake woo, examples that I've experienced are so many different things. I think how I define woo is an ungrounded form of spirituality, something that it doesn't really come from the heart, consciousness, which is like the center of the soul for me, the center of conscious awareness. It's a more mental pattern of thinking about the world and spirituality. You can kind of feel an emptiness to it. You can feel that someone's saying something, but actually they're actually doing something different. So there's a kind of cognitive dissonance around what's happening, or they praise something to the skies, or they get really, they say this is absolutely wonderful, this thing I'm creating or this thing that I'm doing. But then when you go and witness that or experience it for yourself, it feels empty, and it feels like it's not true and it's out of integrity, at some level the body always knows, it can kind of feel it. So so that's my experience and my understanding of fake woo or woo, spiritual woo. And you know, you'd get a weird reaction to it, don't you? You're just like, oh, I just can't stand this, it just feels really uncomfortable. And you don't, I mean, I personally just back off from anything that feels that way, because it just, you know, it in your body. Once you know how to recognize the signs in your body and in your being, then you kind of you just intuitively take a wide berth from it. And sometimes it takes a while to figure it out, because discernment is a process. You do need information coming through, patterns of behavior that then repeat, that you can be like, oh, okay, intuitively I can see that that's not in integrity. But for me, an example of fake woo is yeah, it's I'd say, okay, so I don't know if all the people listening to this or watching this will actually have experienced or known the phenomenon of Glastonbury, which is a very unique, special town in England, in the southwest of England, United Kingdom. And it's known as a spiritual center around the world, actually. Some people refer to it as the heart chakra of the earth, like it's a very powerful vortices of energy that has a really powerful impact on the planetary system, the grid system, you know, and there's no denying that it has a real pull to it. And a lot of things happen down there. You've got the Glastonbury Festival. There's a reason that that is a place where that festival happens. I personally worked and did energy healing at Glastonbury Festival a couple of years in a row, and we're camping on the land, and you're directly on top of a ley line, a very powerful ley line, and it goes right through Glastonbury Tor. And I think it's one of the strongest ones is the Michael line, which comes all the way up from Cornwall. And you can feel the energy. You get to Glastonbury and you're like, whoa, and you're just hit with a wall of energy, and it's really powerful. You really can feel how potent and significant the land is, and the location. There's something very special about it. And I find it interesting because I go there maybe once or twice a year, and I love the food there is amazing. It's full of nutrients and magic, and you know, there's a lot of lovely things you can experience there, and lovely walks, and very quirky shops full of crystals and all kinds of tarot cards and everything you can imagine, kind of spiritual paraphernalia. And at the same time, I get a very floaty energy about Glastonbury. It feels like this is what I'm talking to. There can be an aspect of Glastonbury, not all of it, and there are lots of different people in the world in different places, so you can't generalize, but there is a side to Glastonbury that's really, I almost experience it like a kind of spiritual Disneyland. And I go there a bit like I'm a bit like a spectator, and find it fascinating. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna see this time when I visit, you know? And those people are certainly doing it their own way. And there's all these fantasy clothing shops where there are people dressing up in kind of stuff that looks like medieval gear, or something that you see in like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. And so it really plays into the fantasy element of the imagination of the mind. And I feel like that plays out a lot in the spirituality and the spiritual themes of some of the people who are based in that place. And it gives off a very distinct energy, and you can feel it, and you see all this effort going into creating all these things and bringing together lots of different traditions or concepts or symbols, and being held in a sacred space somewhere. And sometimes you can feel a sacred connection, but a lot of the time there's been a lot of experiences where it just feels very empty to me. I don't feel rooted in anything, and I don't feel an energy that uplifts me and feels like it's really grounded, that I can feel in my body grounded. So yeah, I would call it spiritual Disneyland. And this, for me, there are elements of the woo about it. There really is. And it makes me kind of laugh, because it's just, you know, my soul is like, that's something to find amusement in, you know. So yeah, that would be my example of spiritual woo, of fake woo. And so now we are going to step into our intuition again, and we're going to bring through the first aspect of this topic that we need to talk about, and seek guidance for that, so that we really bring through the highest and best truth and information for everyone listening and watching this. So, and by the miracles of editing technology, we're going to do some space-time travel. And with the edit button, we'll be able to move you straight to the point at which we've actually received the information, and we will give it to you. So we will go into that process now.
Time travel.
Time travel. Time travel. Okay, Michael. So what did you get from the higher that needs to be shared first about this topic?
Well, firstly, time travel is amazing and everyone should really try it. Honestly, it's incredible. Mars, Venus. I mean, I even stopped off on the moon on the way here, you know, like to come back to you. So
magic.
I mean, in this that you have been waiting. It's just incredible what we've been up to, you know, it's been absolutely amazing. But yeah, I think what we need to do is we need to have more happiness, definitely, okay? Much more happiness. And this comes from high energy, from feeling good and doing things that resonates with your soul, okay? Now, what we have to think of as well when we look at things like fake woo is that what's the energy, what's your feeling of that energy, and the information that's coming through that you're receiving as well, you know? Is it too pie in the sky, sort of hot air? Because some people, although they kind of think that they're doing good and they're helping people and everything like this, they just get too carried away. They stay in their higher chakras for too long, and they forget about their grounding, and forget about their root chakra, for example, which is really important. I mean, before I do any meditation at all, I'll make sure that that root chakra is really strong and it's keeping me grounded, so that I'm not just floating around everywhere and just picking up everything that's coming in. You know, and that's what a lot seems to be doing, that's doing a lot of fake woo. They seem to be just picking up one thing and the next, and they're jumping from place to place, you know, and they're just thinking, you know, as well, that that anything that comes through from that is certain beings and certain channelings of different galaxies and multiverses and different dimensions and everything, but may not necessarily be the case. It could be just that they're picking up different states of mind and a lot of different things as well, because without that root keeping them grounded and keeping them in position of where they actually are, they're just picking up everything, you know. And I think it's really important that in a multiverse where we can be anything at all, why not be happy? Why not choose happiness? You know, that's what I would say. Choose happy, choose things that make you feel good, choose things that set your soul on fire, you know, and that's obviously in a good way, so that you're actually having fun, you're enjoying yourself, you're with people, you're with your tribe, you're with the tribe that resonates with you the most, the one that you fit in with the most, the ones who share the same beliefs and the same energies as you as well, you know, and you'll have such a much better life. And what will happen is the universe will sort this tribe out for you. And you know, anyone who's given you this fake woo and that's sending you on to lower dimensions and trapping you and things like this, as much as what actually is going on, you know, then you're just not going to be, you're not going to come into contact with that anymore. You know, it's just literally just going to be, your tribe's going to be there for you. You're going to be able to discern the truth from the woo, you know, and it's brilliant. It's going to be great. And 5D for me is all about that as well. You know, it's about doing things which make your soul feel good, which improve the happiness for you in this multiverse as well. And also it'll just let you recognize, you know, what's important to you more in your life as well. What about yourself, Katie? What did you pick up?
Well, Michael, thank you for sharing that. That all sounds really great and important. And I got some similar overlapping stuff. The first thing I received was to do with the importance of the immediacy of self, because that's all there is. So the present moment, being in yourself, being with your immediate experience, is actually vital it's vital to discernment and to knowing what's true for you and what truth is and what it's not. So you can always trust that. You can always trust this immediacy of self. So the next bit I got was that we can trust love. Love is a solid thing, and we can trust it. We need it. We're made of it. We create it. We are created from love, from divine love. And there is There's divine timing in everything, and we can trust that as well. And that will play into our knowing of whether something is woo or not for us as well. There's synchronicity to whether something is meant to come into your life or not. We can trust those aspects. If it feels loving, then it's probably right for us. And no one can tell you what that is but you. You have to trust your own inner knowing. And it's a guidance system that is just beautiful and divine. And it's there for you. It's always been there for you since you were a child. So it's really, again, about this concept that came up in the first episode of innocence and being able to go back into our innocent self, because a child always knows if something's right or wrong. They always know if something's off. If an adult picks them up and they don't feel safe with that adult, they'll cry. They know that that person, and unfortunately that gets kind of kicked out of us over time through bad experiences with relationships or just difficult experiences that then set us up for kind of experiences of relationship trauma, and then we just lose our guidance and our instinct, and we have to kind of reclaim it as we go through this journey to sovereignty and being sovereign. So this is a really powerful message, I feel. And I also got a reassurance that the future is bright, exactly as you've said, Michael, and that there is a promise that there are many golden things that are coming to us. There's a sense of a golden future that is here. It's imminent. We are manifesting it as we speak. The immediacy of self is what brings this into our reality. So, and I got this beautiful metaphor and message that there's a sense of a rapturous applause for the life we have achieved, that we are instinctively living from and in. So we are being applauded at the highest possible levels for what we're stepping into and what we're becoming through trusting our instinct and through becoming our true selves. It's a sense of coming home to self. I got that. And that we, truth and the resonance of true words and honesty liberates us. So it's not something to be afraid of, but something that can really carry us forward into our future, this golden future. So really the pathway to that is truth, and it is honesty, and it is exploring and acknowledging when things don't feel true or in alignment with ourselves or with another person and what they might be sharing with us. And there's no need to judge it. We don't have to condemn anyone. Everyone's doing the best they can. Everyone, teachers who we may not resonate with, they think that they're doing the best they can, and they are, because they're always working with the best information they have to do what they're doing. Even if they're completely leading people astray, they genuinely think they're doing the right thing. So there is an innocence to people who are what might be considered doing woo or anything like that. And it wouldn't ever be the intention of either myself or Michael, and I'm sure he'll say this himself, to judge anyone who's doing something that we may or may not resonate with. And everyone will have different people they resonate with, different truths. We're all on different parts of the journey, different frequency of different timelines that are manifesting. At different times, we're going to resonate and move towards different truths. So really, this is about us becoming our own guides and really showing that to ourselves, that we can trust ourselves. Building trust with self, is the capacity to trust is infinitely important, and we need to build back that relationship with ourselves that's really been destroyed over millennia because of all the lies that have been told to us and the deception that we've gone through as a civilization. It's been deliberate. We've been interrupted through this lying system, this grid system that is there to destroy us and to isolate us from ourselves and from God. It's really been deliberately put there. One of the most amazing things about waking up is realizing that actually, in our truth, this isn't really who we are. This is a system that's actually been designed around us, that doesn't really come from us, that has been inculcated and indoctrinated into us to cause a lot of pain and alarm, which isn't our true nature. And as we step into the higher, we're stepping into our true nature. And this is what this journey is really about, and the healing that comes with that, and the need to discern what's right for us to take each step towards it. So, and the last thing I got was that we need to be cautious around community endeavors that do not promote oneness with the self and the soul. So ultimately, what I'm receiving is the guidance here is that is your measure that is our measure to get. We're all learning this, we're all discerning this. Our measure is oneness. Do I feel connected to myself when I hear this information, or when this person speaks, or when I do the practice that they've suggested? Do I really resonate with it in my own being and my own frequency? Does it speak truth to me? Truth screams us, we know it. We know it. If you're really clairsentient and you really feel things emotionally, physically, you're kind of blessed, because it's so quick and immediate that you can't deny it. Your gut's just like, no, or yes, it's really, really clear. So that's a blessing, and we just need to remember that and really tune into it. And as you said, meditation can be really helpful for that. But yeah, we need to go with our guts more. And we've had so much programming around our left brain. We've been really put into this tiny space in ourselves through our education system that says we only trust facts, whatever that means, because facts are someone else's opinion, and they're often manipulated and used politically for agendas that may have nothing to do with our well-being or our benefit. And we've been made to live in this tiny little space in our heads, and no wonder kids are sat there bored at school, because they know this. They know they're these multi-dimensional beings of light and joy and fun, and we're meant to be here to play and to share that joy and to learn through curiosity and to receive truth and to have it enlivened within us. So that is the message I received for today's podcast. And so, yeah, together, that feels really awesome. What a beautiful message.
It absolutely is. And I second that as well, and I know that everybody who is trying to wake people up, or they're trying their best, as you mentioned, Katie, and they are, and with respect, we're just making the point for people just to follow what resonates with them and what works well with their energy and fits into their beliefs, but following logic has always been taught to us as being the way to do it. We've always been told to kind of memorize certain textbooks, for example, to get through tests at school and at universities, and that this is the way to follow. But all you're doing is just testing your memory. You're just testing your memory to see whether you can remember certain facts that you're told. But when we say facts, are they really facts just because they've been taught to us? Just because they've been told to us at school? Most of the teachers don't even believe them, but they're still teaching them, as we mentioned in the first episode. And what's fascinating is the fact that it's got really, when you look at it, as we're spiritual beings living in a physical experience, it's got very little to do with logic. I mean, yes, we do need logic for certain things, to say, don't touch the pan, it's hot, and you don't need to touch the pan, it's hot because it's boiling away, for example. But other things such as spirituality and coming out of that left brain thinking and more into the right thinking, what we need to look at is things like visualization. We visualize something first, we get a crystal visualization of it, and then it manifests into what desire we actually want from that as well, whereas logic's got nothing to do with that. Logic and visualization just don't go hand in hand at all. And what we're finding now is that the visualization, the imagination, as you mentioned as well, Katie, about the child imagination being kind of dumbed down, especially at school. We're seeing it happen more and more and more, and they want this slave mentality where we're following this same routine for them all the time. They're getting used to a school bell, for example, and they've got to stop playing. They're having this great time playing with their friends. They hear a bell and they've got to stop playing. Well, I mean, that sounds like slave mentality to me. It sounds a little bit more like a prison than a school. And also you've got things such as the subjects that they're following. Maybe they don't want to really learn that particular subject in that way. Maybe we should listen, more to a child, because at a child's mind, it's all about subconscious. They love to play, they love to create, and they're very organic when they do it, and I think we've lost that. We've lost that as we grow. We've lost that more and more, we need to get back to that kind of creativity energy, where we can start manifesting visualizations and we can start creating this amazing 5D, world that we're gonna live in. It's important. We're going to be living there. Our children's going to be living in there. So we need to make sure that it's something that we want them to. We don't want to keep going down this. We keep repetitively told what to do. We're told from the news, for example, of what they think we should be doing, or we're told in newspapers or magazines how we should look as well. You know, that you should have this body, you should look this way, you should have this hairstyle, this is how you should be, this is what you should say. And they've got things like soaps where people are watching those and they think that that's got to be their real life. That's what they think. They've got to think their life's got to look like that. They've got to go down the pub and they've got to have drinks with people, and they've got to do this. But you don't need to. You can create what you want to create. You can change that. You can change that narrative. You can use your creative energy, use your visualization, and you can change how you actually want things to be, you know, and how you want things to manifest. And your reality will change. Literally, it'll change instantly as soon as you do that. And it's super exciting, because if we spend a little bit more time playing with children and seeing what they're doing, watch their imagination. It's absolutely on fire. Some of the things they do, they can sit and they can have a full adventure game, for example, with their toys and stuff like that, you know. And it's amazing. Some of the things that they come up with is incredible. But because this is fake woo, of course, as well, we also need to bear in mind that, again, it can be a little bit too fairy tale. You know, it can be a little bit too unicorns and rainbow farts, for example, you know, where it's all a little bit too pie in the sky as well, you know. So we have to discern that truth from the fiction, but at the same time, it's important we do not lose that creative element, that imaginative element that we all have, and that we all want, really. You know, we want to progress this way, because people are starting to get bored of the same routines, going to the same job for the same employer, doing the same things over and over again. There's no inspiration there. There's no creative spark. So what we need to do, we need to create it. We are creative beings, no matter what you're told. I know the dark forces and the dark hats, for example, are all wanting you to be like a slave to them, and they're wanting to control you in certain ways, you know. And you just need to laugh at that as well. Just say, like, you know, just let it wash off you like water. You know, it comes to you and you just wash it off. You don't have to bathe in it. You don't have to bathe in it at all. Just let it wash off you, you know, and laugh at it. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. For example, in Afghanistan, you know, they've got the Taliban. They're now trying to tell us that the Taliban are good guys. You know, it's incredible. You know, they came in apparently into this country, they took everyone hostage, and then suddenly they want to fix climate change. You know, it's like there's no government there, there's no structure, there's no nothing, but suddenly they want to fix the climate change. Why would this be? Because they've tried on the news, the dark forces have tried so much to get this false message across that climate change is a thing, when we know it's not. It's completely imaginary. You know, and they've tried every single way. They've tried politicians, they've tried people in Hollywood, celebrities, to try and get this message of climate change. And everyone's like, but there isn't any climate change. What are you talking about? You know, so now they're even trying with the Taliban to say that the Taliban, actually, these have got some good points, especially around climate change. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, you know. And and if you know, you just follow your heart with these things, and you know, you're going to have a much happier life.
Yes, Michael, isn't that an interesting thing? We've come to the point that the Taliban are environmentalists. What a moment in history. What a moment in history. My goodness. That's woo right there, isn't that? That's definitely fake woo. It's interesting because I was sat with this question, because we knew we were going to do this episode on fake woo, and so I tuned into this just before we did this podcast, and I received a really interesting download of information about. So I'd been talking about the, for example, of fake woo, the kind of fantasy element that comes, the kind of what seems to be an ungrounded kind of fantasy element of woo that I've experienced if I go to someone, say like Glastonbury. And I wanted to understand that more, and I just thought, okay, so what does it mean in relation to what's the fake? How do we know what the fake is? What does it even look like? What does it mean? And how do we know what our intuitive knowing is, and how does it connect to our imaginations? Because we're talking about the imagination of the child and how it's innate in us, and it's really important. And I want to share what I got, because this was really, really interesting for me. So what I got was about fantasy, that there are ego structures assembled to bring about. So this is how fantasy works. Ego structures are assembled to bring about relief from torment in the soul. So this is going to be people who are traumatized, people who have a lot of pain, and they haven't been able to access or deal with it at that particular time in their life. And there's a seeking of pleasantness and a desire to escape, to sort out the wound in the ego structure that can't handle the reality of the pain. So, and this is done through this escapism, and it's into an externalized version of oneness with the creator. So it's a kind of projected concept of oneness with the creator through this fantasy element. And so the ego invention is not a sense of wholeness or oneness. It is an invention that creates conflict in the membrane structures of the psyche. So the energetics that surround the psyche, it creates a conflict with that, and it's uncomfortable because it exposes to them the lies of the self. So they're in a state of denial with themselves. And they perform this. This comes as a kind of performance of self. So it goes into this fantasy performance of an externalized reality to escape it, basically. And so these are performances of the self in the present and also future self. So it's projected into the future as well. And they're lived through and they're built upon as a concept for themselves and their living, their, how they live in the world. And so in this place, if we're living like this, we are not ourselves. If we are not true and anchoring into the presence with oneness of the all that is. Inventions and externalizations of the self in the form of portraits and literature and art, these are then created out of that place that don't feed us, and they don't keep our hearts and our souls alive. So you can feel the empty. This is speaking to the emptiness that I was saying before, and it's describing how this actually works as a kind of mechanism within the being and the psyche and the soul. So groundedness in ego structure is key to this. So performative structures of self-expression, they just hold no weight when they are anchored in a soul that is not it's in cognitive dissonance with itself. It's dwelling in too much pain for too long, which overcrowds the mind and sinks it into a state of oblivion that it can never reach or alleviate or relieve of its own accord. The fake woo gives us a clue to what we are seeking to discern. So this kind of, when people are living in this kind of brazen openness of I'm one with the universe, I'm really centered, and they kind of display it and they promote it and they kind of aggressively push it in your face, and it's a performance. It's not an integrity. It's fake woo, and it's connected to the entropy of the soul. The soul is not. It's not elevating. It's not ascending. It's in entropy. It's going backwards. So this is founded out of a mixture of blatant lie and deception that folds in on the eyes of the seeker of love. So you can't see love. You are just wrapped up in this deception around yourself that you've created. None of it's real. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. It is a chosenness, a state of being aligned with source that is half-hearted and boastful, to say the least. Jestful is like a gesture, as opposed to like an empty gesture, as opposed to a really true heartfelt connection. And then the last thing I got about this particular part of it was the possibility that dark entities can engage with your mind and your beingness in this space of creation and oneness with the creator comes about. So you are more vulnerable to being deceived by other things because you are deceiving yourself. So that's the first part I got. I just thought I'd let you, if you wanted to say anything about that before I share the bit that talks about intuitive knowing and what that is by contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things we've got to be aware of is our habits, our lifestyle habits, such as possibly drinking too much alcohol, not exercising, the food that we eat as well, has influence based on what comes out of us, because what we eat is what we essentially are as well, as far as what energy is concerned, what we get out of life as well, and from the ages of 0 to 8, as a child, everything just goes into your subconscious mind, and this is the creative mind, this is the imaginative mind, and this is where we need to start looking again. And a lot of it's closed off for a lot of people, especially their pineal glands of calcified as well. We need to decalcify all of those with the right types of superfoods, the right types of herbs and plants. And by doing that as well, it's going to bring that creative side out of you again. And it's why people are bored. People are bored because they're going through the same routines over and over again. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they're bored, because they've gone from this creative soul who was like literally living in their subconscious mind, taking everything in like a sponge, absorbing everything, learning everything, seeing new sights and seeing different things. And it's really interesting. It's really exciting at that age, But then what happens is we lose our way at some point, and I've mentioned earlier, schools could have something to do with this. We need to look into that a lot more, because it looks to me as though it does play a huge part in what happens to us as we grow that little bit older. It seems like something seems to be cut off. We're cut off from source at that kind of age as well, as we're coming through our teens for whatever reason. We need to look at that and find out, why are we cut off from source as soon as we hit sort of 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, 13, that kind of age. It seems like the source is we're cut off because we stop learning. We stop. If you watch a child at that age, they stop learning and they stop being interested. And people say, "Oh, they're just in their teens." That's kind of an expression. But is that what it is? Are they not just bored? Have they not just kind of had all of their soul and all of their life force and their creativity and imagination kind of sucked out of them a bit? Have they been told so many times that not to do certain things over and over and over again repetitively? And if so, then that's having a big effect on what this creative being should actually end up be doing. It could be that they want to be something and follow their heart. Once they start following their heart, their soul feels good, they feel good, everything's alive, and it's amazing. Everything's different. People come into their life that they should meet, and they have a lot more happiness because of it. And they start looking after themselves better. They start eating better. They start taking care of themselves better. They have more exercises. They go for runs now and again, And what I've noticed is there's a big change. It's literally the difference between success and failure. Whereas failure is literally, you should do something, but you don't do it. You should decide to go for a walk, or you should eat that apple. You should have pine needle tea at the moment, or chaga tea, or you should have some superfoods in your life and have a nice healthy diet, but you don't do it, and that's the start of failure. Because if you continue doing that daily, then it adds up, and then you start getting into a rut, which then takes you down a spiral. Whereas the opposite of that, which is success, in my opinion, is simply doing the opposite, which is taking steps in the right direction to help improve your life, both spiritually and physically and mentally. And if you do that, then you're going to improve your life. So that's got to be the success. That's got to be the formula for failure and success. And that formula for success, just repetitively doing positive habits every day, and they really add up. It could be that you could decide that instead of sitting watching the TV for a few hours, you decide to turn it off. You decide to go for a run around the block, or even a walk around the block. It depends. You have to start somewhere, but you have to be willing to start. You need to get back into things that interest you, things that get your mind ticking again, get that creative element around it as well. And what you can actually do, which I'm going to cover in a future episode, is you can actually manifest and create your life back at that kind of age as well. Because what happens between the ages of 0 and 8, your subconscious mind's taking everything in, and that's going to create the rest of your life from 9-year-old onwards. Everything that you've taken in there, you're going to start repeating the same things. You're going to start looking for the same signs during that time. That 8-year period controls the rest of your life for what it's going to be. So what we're looking at doing is we're actually going back and finding how to get back into your subconscious and change some programs, because in there there'll be some bad programs that are in there, you know. And it was like what Bruce Lee said. He says the reason why he's like he was, you know, and obviously somebody else who wants to be him, obviously you've got the master and also the student, you know, and what he said was, start by emptying your glass. So what he did is he had a glass of kind of Coke and a glass of water. He said, this is me and this is you at the moment. He says, what you're doing is you're trying to put water into the Coke, you know, and it's just going to overflow, but it's still going to be dark. What you need to do is start by emptying the Coke out first and then filling it up with water. And I think that's what we need to get back to. And a lot of people need to get back to that as well, where they decide to empty those bad programs out first and then install the new programs, the healthy habits, and how they can actually take their life forward from there. And honestly, by doing that, your life will change. You're going to manifest something beautiful in your life. You're not going to have that frustration. Turn frustration into fascination. Get fascinated about your frustrations. And if you can do that, then you're going to start releasing the boredom. You're going to start finding a lot more things to do with your life. And it's going to take you on a fantastic journey, you know, and a very exciting journey. You're going to meet the right tribe, the right people for you as well. And honestly, I'm excited for what 5D is going to bring for everybody as well, you know. So it's, for me, this is a fantastic time. It's a wonderful time. Discern yourself from this fake woo. Resonates. What resonates with you? You know, what resonates? Think about it. Does this resonate with me? Is this coming from the heart? Is it coming from the heart, or is it coming from a place of fear? Where's it actually coming from? You know, and if it is coming from a place of the heart, make sure your heart chakra is nice and clear as well. And there's certain exercises you can do to do that as well, and certain frequencies that you can listen to help clear those chakras. You know, and which is going to be great. It's going to tune you in to much better thoughts and much better things that you can actually do in your life as well. And honestly, I'm really excited for everyone, Katie. I am. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Well, I wanted to come back and just finish the other part of the information I got about the difference between fantasy and imaginative truth, like intuitive truth. So what I got was that true intuitive insight, which is what we need to be discerning and to know what's true for us and what's woo and what's true, and to know the true from the woo and the woo from the true. We need to distinguish them. And so this was the contrast to what I shared about the fantasy aspect. So in a true intuitive insight state and using true imagination, which is connected to the higher realms of guidance and connected to God. So that's why oneness is so important, because when we're one with ourselves, we're one with the mind and the consciousness of God and the creative energy and the, you know, the hive creative mind that comes with it. And so in this state, by contrast, you can't really, there's no deception or interference from any dark entities or anything that's not of the light. In this place, we are one with the Creator. And in this place, we know our true worth. So that's connected to this, you know. When we're in pain, we can lose connection with our worth. It cuts us off from our soul and our true knowing of our worth, which is innate to us and it's divinely given to us. And so it is connected to a state of worthiness. So you would feel worthy of it, and you would be able to affirm that in yourself. What I got was the imaginal realm that we tap into with our intuition. It gives us an opportunity to grow and understand ourselves better. So if you're not experiencing that when you're tapping into something, then it's probably an indication that you're not really tuning into the right field of information for yourself, for ourselves. And this helps us to grow and understand ourselves better, and to move away from the fog lights of the mind. So we can get blinded by the mind and we can't see beyond it. So this is how we navigate that and move around it, because we're always going to have a mind. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, the mind chatter, it's just natural. It's part of the way the brain works. Ultimately, the ego and the brain wants to keep us safe and wants to be strategic and give us useful information. But it's about plugging into the heart as the guiding tool and knowing what we're moving towards, and then letting the mind catch up and serve the heart. So so I'm getting that coming through. I also get that we can know ourselves and our higher mind infinitely better and much more clearly when we express this through arts and creativity and poetry and literature. It's a way for us to know our truth. So that's why that stuff is so important for us and for our culture. We share our truth and our self-expression and our collective expression, and it connects back to the divine, and this is sacred ultimately. I got that groundedness helps us to vocalize our truth. So that's why going into the root chakra, that's why being grounded, it taps into truth. We feel our truth because we are grounded. And our true passion comes through, and the spellbinding magic of the human soul can then come through and be truly expressed. I also got, in reference to the fantasy aspect, that fantasy is really quite legless and has nowhere to go. It just repeats themes and forms that it's seen before, and it just stays in a safe place that's kind of a fake reality that's separate from self and separate from source ultimately. I also got that we know that we're in our true imaginations because it is full of infinite possibilities. It is infinite possibility. It's not limited, it's infinite. Intuition is enlivened in the soul, and it helps us to seek out communion with God and the divine. So going back to that communion aspect, the solar plexus plays a role in this. It creates change. It stirs up change in the body and in the being that activates the larynx. There's kind of vocal cord processes that help us express our truth. So this is the point at which we can express our truth, is coming through the voice chakra, the throat chakra. And so there's an activation between the solar plexus and the voice chakra that's part of this process. And it's activated and seizes upon the opportunity to shine the light of God's compass and portray the truth and worthiness of all creation. So that's literally, it's not just us. It's like we are tapping into the whole worthiness and beauty of creation when we are coming from and connected to that place. And we feel it. You can feel it when someone creates that, can't you? When they create a song that comes from that place, you're just like, oh, you just feel it right here, don't you? Or you read a beautiful story or a poem or see an amazing painting. It's just really high vibrational codes of wisdom and knowledge and divine truth that come through it. We just know it, we feel it. So much modern art for me has been alarming because it hasn't been fostered from that place. It's been fostered from the ego and from the sense of trauma and separation. So I've always stayed away from those galleries and those exhibitions because I knew it wasn't serving my soul, and I wanted to be around things that felt uplifting and beautiful. And that for me is an indicator of when we're in alignment with that higher truth. And the last thing I'll say is on this particular topic, that we are one with the Creator when we're in our imagination. So that's how important and powerful it is. And all is well when we express this kind of adulation and oneness implicitly in our beingness. It's just implicit. It's there for us just to tap into, and it's beautiful. And when you do it, the liberation that comes is just phenomenal. So I would say, yeah, that's what I got for that topic, and it felt really, really special to receive that. So I'm really glad I had a chance to share that in the podcast today. So
I think as well that we've got to identify where we are on the scale of kind of pain and pleasure as well when it comes to this. So is this that we're watching, is it resonating, and is it giving us a sense of pleasure, or is it giving us a sense of pain? You know, because we're so lucky in the fact that the closer we're connected to God and the closer we're connected to source, we get more pleasure out of it, you know, because that's what your soul wants. You're connected, your soul and your body's connected. So therefore you're connected to source and to God, as in the whole as well, the whole, the creative. So then you start feeling good. So anything that you start following on that path, when you feel like that, it's going to be great. It's going to be creative. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to feel good. Now, when you start going on the other side of the scale and you start moving away from them, you start moving more towards kind of fear and, you know, loneliness and boredom. And boredom definitely being the opposite of what we're talking about, really, about pleasure. And what happens is you start feeling further away from soul and from creative energy, and also from God and from the One as well, you know. And what happens there is you need to identify where you are on that scale at any one time. And that's even when people are coming in that and they're channeling things and they're saying stuff to you and you're listening to them, and you know, how are they vibrating to you? What's their energy like? Is it causing you to think about more pain, or are you thinking more pleasure wise as well, you know? And it's really interesting because that skill can be used for so many things, because if you start following that path towards pleasure, and you know, doing what the source wants you to do, you're going to have a much easier life, because that's called being in the flow. And when you're in the flow, it's a lot easier to flow with something than it is when you're fighting against a current. So when you're going to be fighting against the current because your soul wants to do something so much and it's got that creative energy, but instead you're choosing not to listen to it. And what you're doing is you're becoming bored, and it's becoming out of sight. And the further you drop down that scale and the lower your vibration is and your energy towards it, the further away you are, the more pain you feel. So we're very, very lucky in that the beingness that we are will actually tell us, will actually identify to us whether we're further into pleasure or pain. And when we start feeling pain, it's identifying there's a problem, or it's identifying that we've moved too far away from source in certain ways, you know. And what's great is that we've got that identifier to actually know where we are as far as our creative energy is concerned, or that we've gone back into this kind of slave mentality where we're just obeying orders, you know. And this is what it's all about. The inorganic, the dark beings want you on this side of the scale. They want you to be bored. They want you to be in an occupation that you don't really enjoy, that you find really boring, and they suck all the life out of you because they want you at this side of the scale because you're easier to be controlled. Now, what's interesting is occupation. The word occupation actually comes from two words, which is, from three words, which is occupy the patient. Occupy the patient. So it's actually been done on purpose. And that's where occupation comes from. And the reason why is because they want you occupied, your mind occupied, so you can't access this creative spark of energy, this creative element, this imagination, that because they know that we're very creative, imaginative beings. And by keeping us here locked in this kind of boredom, loneliness, and kind of in this slave mentality group of fear, then we can be controlled, and we're not going to access this creative spark of energy. So what you need to do is you need to think, are you now in your life nearer this side or nearer this side? And if you're nearer this side, you need to take steps towards getting to this creative energy spark again, you know. And when you do, you're going to feel like your life's on fire. You're going to feel like your life's gone from being in black and white to being in color. All of a sudden, you can see everything. You know, the colors are much more vibrant. You know, you're taking notice of things. You can see butterflies and bees in slow motion, for example. Everything becomes beautiful again, and you're not just taking things for granted because you access your gratitude. And when you're grateful for things, then you've got more things to be grateful for. The universe will give you more things to be grateful for. But first of all, you must be grateful for what you have in your life to begin with. And once you are, the universe is just going to throw loads of things at you that's just going to fulfill so many different elements of your life, you know. So get yourself a list wrote. Write down things that you want and things that you're grateful for now, and the universe will bring it all around for you. It'll bring them to you quicker than what you might think. But anyone who's following this side towards this boredom and slave mentality, the universe is going to give you more of that, which is not what you want. And this is why you're seeing certain things pop up in your life that's causing pain, because it's telling you to grab a hold of yourself and think to myself, look, I don't want this. I don't want this. If you were getting pleasure from being at this side, then you wouldn't change. You wouldn't change. You wouldn't wake up. You wouldn't grow. You wouldn't come out your comfort zone. But because we've experienced pain by being here, we need to do something else. We need to get to this creative spark again. And it's great because what you do is you come out of your comfort zone, okay? And then you learn how to deal with things from then. Yes, you'll have a couple of fallbacks and you'll start falling a little bit down here again. And you'll have that point saying, what have I done? Oh, no, I don't know if I can do this. You'll have all this self-doubt and everything like that. But that's great. That means you're growing. You're coming out of your comfort zone. You're not staying here, you know, sort of in the harbor. You're out there in the waters and you're experiencing different things with your life. And that's fantastic. That's great. That's where you want to be. You know, you want to be on a journey. You want to be in that water, and you want to be heading towards your direction. You want to be heading to the island that you want to be at, rather than sitting there in the harbour where everything's safe and boring. You know, and when you do that, your life changes in so many ways. You can start creating so many different things. And you're going to be so happy again. Your happiness is going to come in. The boredom's going to subside completely. You're going to get excited, you know, like we are.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Those are really great tips, and I really appreciated those insights. I think they're a really good way to wrap up the episode today. It's been brilliant to talk about this stuff today, and it's been great to do the second episode on fake woo and helping all of us to distinguish between, you know, the true and the woo, and the woo and the true. So it's been great, and it's been great. Thank you everyone for listening and for coming to watch us, and we look forward to sharing more fun and interesting content from the higher, and that takes us onto the 5D timeline and beyond. So yeah, thanks for coming. Take care.